In this video, I'll show you how to write a script that will allow your players to automatically ping themselves and center the map on their character's location, and if the player controls more than one character, they'll be presented with a list of the characters they control, and they can choose which one they want to ping. So, let's see how to do this. Now, before we go any further, I do need to mention that in order to create API scripts in Roll20, you do need a pro subscription. So, just want to get that disclaimer out of the way. Okay, so I've come into Roll20, I'm on my game's main settings page, and I'm just going to go into Settings, API Scripts, and I'm going to create a new script. And let's call this script Ping Me, and I'm going to zoom in here, make this a little bit easier to read. There we go. Okay, to start things out, we want to see if the player typed the ping me command into the chat. So we're going to start that with on chat :message, function MSG. So basically what we're saying here is we're going to take whatever message was typed into the chat box and we're going to run it through whatever's in between these curly braces here. And so we want to check, all right, we got a message typed into the chat. Was that message our ping me command? So we're going to say if msg.type equals API. So was this an API command, meaning did it start with an exclamation point? And, two ampersands means and in JavaScript, msg.content.index of ping me equals 0. So if the message was an API command and the message starts with the text exclamation point ping me, then it's our ping me command, and we're going to do whatever is between these curly braces. So now that we know that the player is trying to ping themselves, we need to find what character that player controls. And to start things out, we're going to focus on the scenario where a player only controls a single character. And then we'll get into what's involved with handling a player who controls multiple characters later in this video. But to start out, one player controls one character. So what we're going to do here is say var character equals find objects, open paren, open curly brace, type :character, controlled by msg.playerID. And so what this line is doing is it's saying, give me a list of all the characters that are controlled by the player who typed the command into the chat box. That's what msg.playerID is doing. Now, the find objects command is going to return an array. That is a list of objects that match our search criteria. And in this scenario, we should only find one character because we're doing the single player controlling a single character scenario. So that means we can do a shorthand thing here where we can just say open bracket 0. And that's just saying the first item that gets found by the find objects command is going to be assigned to the character variable. And because we're only expecting the player to control one character, that's fine. So that's our character. So now that we know what character the player controls, we need to find that character's token on the map. So for that, we're going to say var player token equals, and this is another find objects command, and this one's going to be a little bit longer, so I'm going to split this one over a couple of lines here. So again, open paren, open curly brace, and we'll put our semicolon here, and we're going to say, okay, find objects of type graphic, subtype token. So graphics can be maps, tokens, or cards in Roll20. We want the subtype of token. Represents character get ID, and page ID is going to be campaign get player page ID. Okay, so what does all this mean? Well, we're looking for an object that is a token that represents the character that we found up here and is currently on the active page in the campaign. That is the page where the player ribbon currently lives. That's what this line is saying right here, because you may have that character's token on multiple pages in your campaign. We don't want to be firing pings all over the place. We just want to be firing pings on the page that the players are currently on. So that's what this line is doing here. Now, the find object command, again, it's still returning an array, and just like before, it's only going to return a single item. So we can do that same trick here where we say just give us the first item that you found in this array. Okay, so now we have the token that represents our character, and what we can do now is fire that ping. So we're going to say send ping, and then we need to specify the location on the screen where the ping's going to occur. So we're going to say player token get left. This is the X coordinate of the ping. Then we're going to say player token get top. This is the Y coordinate. Then we need to say, okay, what page are we sending the ping to? So we're going to say player token dot get page ID. So that's saying get the page that the token is currently on. Then we're going to say MSG dot player ID, and this is indicating the color that the ping will use. So if we look in our game, you'll see that my player has this purple color assigned to them right now. That's the color that will be used when the ping fires. Then we're going to say true, and true is what tells Roll20 to center the map on that ping location. And then finally MSG.playerID again, and this is saying we're only centering the view for this specific player. So otherwise we'd be focusing all players onto that specific token. We don't want to do that. We only want the player who typed the command in to have their view centered. And that's it. So now we're going to save this. And I just realized this line right here, this should be a colon rather than a period. So just make that fix real quick. We'll save the script. There we go. And then we'll give the sandbox a chance to spin back up. All right, that looks good. And now I'm just going to switch over to my player's view. All right, so here I am. I'm logged in as my player. I'm going to say exclamation point ping me. And there we go. The player's view was centered on the map, and you saw their ping was fired in their color. So that works. Great. So that's all you need to do if your players only control a single character. You could take that and just run it exactly as it is. But if you are in a situation where your players control multiple characters, then the script's going to need to be a little bit more sophisticated. So that's what these next few things that we talk about are going to deal with. Now remember, ultimately what we want to do is if our player controls multiple characters, we want them to type in ping me, and then they get this message whispered to them asking which of their characters they want to ping. And then we've got these buttons representing each character. They can click on a button, and then the ping automatically moves them to that character. So that's kind of what we want. Now basically what these buttons do is make another call into the API. Unfortunately, we can't call the ping command directly from a chat button like this. So what we're going to need to do is wrap the send ping command in a function that we can call from a button like this. So that's what we're going to work on now. So we're back in our code, and the first thing I'm going to do is create another onMessage command. So basically I'm just going to copy these two lines up top here and paste them down at the bottom. And very important, before we do anything else, we want to close these open braces that we've got. So I'm going to close this one right now, and that's going to take care of that. And then we're going to press enter, and we're going to close the other curly brace, the other paren, and then the semicolon. And I'm doing that first just so that I don't forget to do that later. Otherwise, that's going to cause a whole bunch of syntax problems. We're going to change the ping me command here. We're going to call this ping character. All right. So basically what we're saying here is if the command that's entered into the chat is ping character, then we're going to do whatever's in between the curly braces. Now, in order for this to work, we're going to need to get some information about the token that we want to ping. And so I'm just going to swing my trusty notepad window over here. Okay, so ultimately this is what the syntax of the command will look like. It'll be ping character, followed by a space, followed by the ID of the character that we want to ping, another space, and then the ID of the player who controls that character. So it's going to be the same information that we were using in the original command, just it looks a little bit different. And the script is going to actually build this command for us. We're not going to need to actually type all this stuff out. But this is what the ping character command is going to need in order to work its magic. So you saw we had some arguments being sent in. So we're going to say var args equals msg.content.split, open paren, open single quote, space. So we have a split with an empty space in between it. And that means that we are splitting the text of the message at the spaces. So back in the notepad window here, you saw we have a space right here between character and the character ID. And then we have another space between the character ID and the player ID. So each of these is going to become their own element. So the args here, this is going to be an array containing 3 elements. The first one will be ping character, the second one will be the character ID, and the third will be the player ID. So now we're just going to spell that out. We're going to say that var character ID equals args index 1, and var player ID equals args index 2. And remember that JavaScript is 0 based. So in our original string here, if we split this, ping character becomes item number 0, the character ID becomes item number 1, and the player ID becomes item number 2. So we start at 0 and count up. All right, so now that we've got our character ID and our player ID, what we want to do is find the token that represents that character. We're going to do the exact same thing that we did up here. So I'm just going to copy these lines, and I'm going to paste them down here. And we'll back that out so it's indented properly. So player tokens, this is going to work exactly the same. We're finding a graphic whose subtype is token, but represents is different. Now we're not looking for character get ID anymore. We actually have the ID that's being provided directly as our arguments. So we're going to just say character ID here. And then the rest of this stays the same. We're still going to return an array of items that match our search criteria. That will only be one item, so we're just going to return the first item, just like we did before. And then we're going to fire the ping, and that's going to be the exact same command as we did earlier. Again, that's send ping, just we're going to make one minor change here where we're using message player ID. We're going to replace that with the player ID value that we are passing into the ping character function. We're updating the character ID so that it's the character ID that was passed into the function. We're updating player ID so that it's the player ID that was passed into the function. And that gets us almost all the way there. But as we think about it, there may be situations where a particular character isn't on the map. You know, maybe your player controls multiple characters, but one of them isn't in this particular scene. Well, if they try to send a ping to a character that isn't on the board, we're going to get error messages. So we need to accommodate for that particular situation. So what we're going to say here is if player token equals undefined, then we're going to return. And that's going to jump us out of the function and exit gracefully. So if the token is not on the board, the system won't throw any errors or anything like that. However, it would be nice to give the player a notification that the token isn't on the board, because if we leave it just as this, then they're going to try to ping something, it won't happen, and then they're just going to be like, what the heck, why didn't it ping my character? So we really should send them a note. So what we should say here is send chat, and this chat message is coming from the ping me API, and we want to whisper this to the player, so that's /w. But then we need the player's name, and we don't have that right now. So what I want to do is pass that into this function as well. Pass that into the ping character function. Make that the third parameter. We'll call this player name equals args 3. So then we'll get the player's name, we'll pass that in, and then we'll be good to go. So what we're going to say here now is plus, and we're going to put in the player name, and then another plus, and we'll say that character is not on the map. Okay, so now we've just made it so our function will take another parameter, the player's name, and if player tries to ping a character who's not on the map, they're going to get a nice message whispered to them, so we're not going to clog up the chat, and then the function will exit gracefully rather than throwing error messages. So if we go back to our notepad window here, essentially what we've just done is made it so that now there's a third parameter here. So we're going to be passing in ping character, the ID of the character we're pinging, the player's ID, and then the player's actual name. So now that we have all that done, let's go ahead and let's rework our ping me function so that it can handle the situation where a player controls multiple characters. Okay, now the first thing we're going to do is get rid of this player token and ping section here. We're just going to delete all that because all that stuff is now down here wrapped up in the ping character function. We don't want to duplicate code. We're just going to remove that and we'll use the ping character function instead of all that stuff we had previously. And I'm going to change my var character here. I'm going to change this to var character list. And we want to turn this just into an array itself, right? So we had it as a single item before. That was great if we were in a situation where we knew that one player would control one character. But now we're getting into a scenario where maybe the player controls multiple characters. So we want our character list to be an array of all the characters that the player controls. Now, we do still have the situation where that player may control just one character, so let's account for that. We're going to say if character list dot length equals 1. So if the player only controls one character, then what we want to do here is say send chat, and we're going to call our new ping character function. So we'll say it's coming from ping me API. And then we're going to put in the ping character command. And so what we're going to say here is exclamation point ping character space plus the character list item 0, so the only item in the array, dot get ID. So that's going to get us the ID of the character like we did before, plus, and then another space, plus msg.playerID. Okay, so that gets us the ID of the player, but then we also need the player's name. So let's do that up here. We're going to come up here and we're going to say var player name equals get object, and the object we're interested in is a player whose ID is msg.playerID, and then we'll say get display name. And display name is how this player appears in your game. So if we look in my game right here, we can see that my player's display name is NO. So that's what I'm going to retrieve, and that's what we're going to use when we whisper to them. So we've got that, and then we're going to fill in player name. That's going to just fire the ping character command if the player only controls one character. So this is a good time to save this and test it out. So let's save the script. So here I am in my player's view. We're going to type in ping me. And there we go. We're centered on our character's token. All right, that's the player who only controls a single token. Okay, so we've done that. Back to our script. So now let's take care of the situation when they control multiple characters. Right now we're saying if the list length is 1, then we send the ping command, else we want to present them with a list of all the characters they control so they can choose who they want to ping. So ultimately what we want it to look like is this. The character types in ping me, they get this list. I've changed it now so my player controls multiple characters, and you can see we get these two buttons, right? So I can say ping Cassandra or ping Grenda Fireforge. Cassandra, Grenda. The way these buttons are made is using HTML syntax. So if you've ever created a hyperlink on a web page, the syntax for this is going to look very familiar to you. Essentially, what we're going to do is wrap this command in anchor tags. So it's going to look like this. We start out with an ahref and then the actual ping command. So there's our ping character command. There's the character ID. There's the player ID. There's the player's name. And then there's the character's name. So we're going to essentially build out this string in our script so that we can make that button. So let's do that. Okay, back in the code, we're in our else statement. And what we want to do is build out one of those links for each character our player controls. So I'm going to begin by defining a variable called ping list. This is going to contain all of the anchor tags that we create. So I'm just going to initialize this so it's an empty string. Just 2 double quotes, no spaces between them or anything. This is a double quote, immediately followed by another double quote. Now what we want to do is loop over each character that the player controls and build a link for them. So to do this kind of a loop, we're going to use this command, _.each. And underscore is a special JavaScript library that Roll20 gives us access to. And there are a ton of useful helper functions in underscore. But this one, what it does is allows you to iterate over each item in an array and do something with it. So what we're going to say here is for each, and then open parenthesis, and we're going to say the name of the array that we're working with. In this case, it's the character list, comma, function, and then character. And what we're saying here is for each character in the character list, do whatever is between these curly braces here. So what do we want to do? Well, we want to build that anchor tag, right? So we're going to say ping list plus equals. This is how you append to something in JavaScript. So plus equals, and now we're going to start building out the anchor tag. So we're going to do a single quote, and we're going to put in the ahref equals, and then open double quote, exclamation point, ping character, and then a space. So we're really just starting to build out that tag. Now, the quotes here are important when you use double quotes versus when you use single quotes. If we look back at our notepad file, you'll notice here that we have the actual command, the ping character command, enclosed in double quotes. So we need to make sure that we get all of our quotes right, otherwise this is going to break. If I were to put another double quote here right now, that would end the string and the command wouldn't work properly. So we need to make sure we have the quotes properly here. We're going to say plus, and we need our character's ID, so we're going to say character.get ID. Then another plus, and now we need a space, and I'm using single quotes to create the space. This is putting the space between the character ID and the player's ID that we're about to have. So we're going to put in msg.player_ID. Then another space using single quotes, plus player name, plus, do the single quotes, a double quote, and then the greater than symbol. So this part, what we've got so far, gets us up to here in our anchor tag. So that's what we've built here. So each one of these, single quote with a space, that's the spaces in between the parameters. Okay, so we've built that. All right, now what we need is the character name. So we're going to say plus character get name plus, and then our closing anchor tag. All right, and that gets us this last bit right here. Okay, so we've gotten our list of characters that the player could ping. Now we want to present that to the player. So we're going to say send chat. And again, it's going to be coming from the ping me API. And what we want to send is a whisper command. So again, /w plus player name. All right, so just like we did before, plus, and then which character. And I'm actually going to put an HTML break here. This is going to give us like a line return after which character goes into the chat. And then we're going to follow that with the ping list. So that will display all of the HTML buttons that we've just created. So let's click save here. All right. And let's take this first spin. Okay, so I'm back into my player's view here. Typing in ping me. Which character? Let's go to Cassandra. Yes. Let's go to Grenda. Yes. Okay. So now let's test out our logic of when one of their characters isn't on the board. So, jumping into my GM view here, I'm going to delete Grenda off the map completely, so she's not there anymore. Let's go back to our player's view. Okay, so I'm back on my player's view here. I'm going to type in ping me again. Okay, so which character? Cassandra. Let's go to Grenda. That character is not on the map. Cassandra. She's right there. Grenda. Not there. So you can see now If the character isn't there, the script is recovering gracefully, we're not getting any failures, and we can continue to ping other characters if we want. So there you have it. That's how you can create a script that will allow players to ping any one of the characters that they control. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like and consider subscribing. And until next time, folks, have a great day.